What's going on, everyone? In this video, we're going to be doing the weekly recap of the StockedUp trading floor. The market is getting closer and closer to breaking past its all-time high. SPY is 0.54% away from it, and we are heading into a very exciting week as the FOMC interest rate decision will happen on Wednesday. The Fed will decide, number one, if it will cut rates or not at this upcoming meeting, but we'll also get an updated dot plot, which will be important, as well as hear a lot about what the Fed and Jerome Powell is thinking with monetary policy heading into 2026. So that should be very exciting. Definitely check out the main channel video for more depth on that, but let's jump right into this week's recap. Starting off with the high-risk breakouts. As we can see on Monday, there was some decent action. MSTR puts popped up by like 101%. Hood puts popped up by 85%, Disney calls 85%, Beyond calls 82%. These stocks moved in an okay way. There were a handful of duds and plays that just moved a little bit or not really at all. So I would say the week started off okay, maybe a little bit slow. As the week went on, we definitely saw periods of more volatility and momentum. But I would say it was a very unevenly distributed week. As we can see on Tuesday, ABTC, Boeing, Palantir had some fine moves. There were a handful of stocks that moved up in a fine way and a handful of duds, but I would say Tuesday was a bit slow. As we get to like Wednesday and Thursday is when like most of the momentum and volatility really came into play. As we can see on Wednesday, we had UNH calls pop up by 180%, Netflix puts 178%, Tesla calls 132%, and then there were a handful of stocks that had okay moves and a handful of stocks that didn't really move at all or just duds, which, you know, there was some opportunity, not like an insane amount, but Thursdays where most of the opportunity was concentrated. As we know, opportunity is certainly not distributed equally, especially clusters. And we can see on Thursday, there was a lot of just phenomenal momentum. There were a handful of stocks that had great gains, like IONQ calls that popped up by 571%, ASTS calls by 553%, USAR calls by 394%, EOSE calls by 295%, Oklo calls by 290%, Costco puts by 196%, JP Morgan calls by 134%, Amazon puts by 114%, Rocket Lab calls by 114%, UPS puts by 72%, and a handful of other stocks that had, you know, fine and decent moves. There was really only one stock that was just a dud, but overall, tons of opportunity on Thursday. It was great to see this increase in momentum and volatility. As Friday happened, I would say it got a little bit slower. There wasn't that much like action and volatility on Friday. It was just more of a slower day. As we can see when we just look at the price action, yes, there was a fair amount of momentum right off the open, but besides that, I would say it was kind of boring and choppy. As we get into the pullbacks, there were some okay moves. As we know with pullbacks, they tend to be slower and smoother because the best breakouts don't pull back, so you don't really see as explosive moves with pullback setups. But because you're catching the stocks like on their second or potentially third leg, they tend to just be like a little bit smoother and less crazy and less volatile. So okay action this week. I wouldn't say anything too crazy. I would say it was definitely a little bit slower in that sense. What's very exciting is that the market is heading into a very important time of the year, as December is the month that is the most likely to be green. And the second half of December especially is, you know, the Santa rally, which is one of the strongest times of the year. What makes this time so exciting is that, number one, we're very close to all-time highs, but also number two, we have this important Fed meeting that is important not only by itself because of the way interest rates will get adjusted and the updated dot plot, but we're also going to hear who the next Fed chair will be, which will have a big influence on how markets price in the future path of rate cuts. So that's exciting. I think we should be in for a very exciting end of the year. So thank you so much for watching. As always, if you need anything, feel free to reach out to Tom, Hunter, Mason, or myself, and we'll make sure you're taken care of. And as always, if you haven't checked out short and put options yet, definitely check it out. it out. Shorting put options basically allows you to get paid to potentially buy stocks that you'd otherwise be happy to own at prices you'd be happy to own them at. All 5 of them for this week immediately expired for max profit. But again, if this is something you need help with, definitely reach out and we'll make sure you're taken care of. Thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market this week.